test the performance of a braking system on a car, the first thing that needs to be done is a thorough road test by an experienced mechanic to check the various components of the braking system to make sure they're all working correctly, and also to make sure there's no shudder or vibration coming through the brakes. That'll help the mechanic pinpoint more in the correct area of what will be wrong with this car. There are also devices we use to check the braking efficiency on a car. One of those devices is called a brake tester. It's used on all roadworthies, and a car must legally pass a brake test by connecting this machine up to the brake pedal of the car, and this sits in the car, and you reach a certain speed and hit the brakes fairly hard, and this will print out the performance of these brakes under hard braking. On this particular car, I removed a few components to make it easier to see what we'll actually be checking for on this system. This is the brake caliper. I've already removed the bolt so I can lift it up. These are the brake pads, which I'll get out. They're held in by clips. They can be a bit stubborn sometimes to get out. Now these particular brake pads have still got a little bit of life left in them, but I will have to replace them because the disc is badly worn and it's worn into these disc pads. So if I get these discs machined and put these pads back on, it won't be good. This is the old brake pad and this is the new brake pad. You can see here the material left on this one. There's not a lot left compared to the new one. It's about half worn, but that would generally go another 6 months before that might need to be replaced. But because we're machining the discs, we will be replacing these disc pads as well. It's not worth putting them back in. This is a brake pad that was changed on a car that come in earlier today. It was done by a backyard mechanic and was actually put in incorrectly, and the brake pad had actually cracked, and the owner was very lucky to escape without having a serious accident. So be very careful who fits your brakes and how they go about doing them. So the first thing we need to know before we measure this is what is the minimum thickness of that disc allowed to be. They start off nice and thick and they wear down as the car gets older. So to determine what thickness they need to be, you need a manual that has all the specifications in it. This is a manual made by DBA, which make a lot of braking components. And for this particular car, being a BF Falcon, the minimum thickness is 26 millimeters. I'll measure this disc. The measurement of these is 28.3 millimeters, so they will be able to be machined. We use special vernier calipers just for measuring discs to determine what thickness they are. Without these, you cannot know what thickness a disc is, and you shouldn't do a brake pad change without knowing that. It's illegal to put brake pads on a disc that's too thin. It's quite dangerous. We have an on-car machiner that comes out and machines our discs here, and I'll get him in to show you how we actually machine the discs, and we'll make this old disc come up like brand new. This is an on-car brake disc machiner. It has an electric motor, and it connects to the hub of the car, and it spins the hub around. When it spins the hub around, you have two jaws here that actually clamp around the disc and machine a certain amount off that disc. I have an old disc here that's been removed from a car. It's done quite a few thousand kilometres, and you can see the surface of that's quite rough and old compared to the disc that's been machined. Now before we can put the brake pads in, the caliper pistons have to be pushed in with using a special tool, which I've already done. They have to be checked to make sure that they're not seizing inside the bores and to make sure they're not leaking. There are also 2 slides that the caliper slides on, and they have to be checked and lubricated as well, because they also bind up, which can cause many problems with your brakes. Put the new brake pads on. Put the bolt back in the caliper. Now the only thing left to do now is to obviously put the wheel back on, but more importantly the brake pedal will now have to be applied several times before the car is moved, because the brake pedal will be very low because the caliper pistons are being pushed right back in. Once you've done that, the car is ready to be driven to make sure that everything is performing the way it should be.